Welcome up, Clay Smith.
Good morning, fellow Toastmaster.
Good morning.
What is defensiveness? In coaching my clients, I need a resource that explains this concept of defensiveness in relationships. I can't find it anywhere, so I thought, you know what? Screw it, I'm going to make my own. Defensiveness. What is it? It has no metric volume. We can't pick up a 2-pack at Costco. How do you define this? So looking online, defensiveness is best understood by a psychological and an emotional response. It's characterized by reacting to perceived criticism, blame, or threat with protective behaviors such as denial, justification, counterattacks, or avoidance. Whew. Only have 6 to 8 minutes. Whew, okay. Defensiveness often arises to protect us. It comes from a place of vulnerability when we have that perceived attack of being misjudged. But it's a way to avoid that discomfort with someone else. Today, I want to talk about defensiveness. We're going to get a better understanding of what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, so you can create an awareness of defensiveness in yourself and in your relationships with those who matter most to you. We're going to talk about why people choose defensiveness over connection in a relationship. And finally, I want to leave you with some subtle mental shifts that you can apply to make sure defensiveness isn't coming in between you and those who matter most to you. So let's get started. What does defensiveness look like? In a conversation, it might look like shifting the blame onto that other person to avoid taking responsibility. It might look like interrupting and arguing, taking over the conversation, not letting someone else have a word in so you don't have to be faced with cold, hard truth. It might look like minimizing that other person's feelings or experiences, downplaying their contribution to the argument or the fight, or just making up excuses in general. What does it feel like? Well, it's a protective barrier to protect you from that discomfort of judgment or criticism. I think the best analogy to explain what it feels like is the last time you went camping. And I'm not talking about that camping and that sexy RV where you had every amenity known to man backed up right to a beautiful lake. I'm talking about tent camping with the sleeping bags and all that stuff. So you're just finishing up your last brewski, putting out the fire, packing everything away. You hop in that sleeping bag, zip up the tent. 20 minutes later, there's heavy footprints walking. You hear some breathing going on. You hear some things rumbling and rattling. It's that fear. That's defensiveness. It starts off with the fear, and then as it progresses, it leads to anger and frustration. That's the energy that we need into that fight or flight mode if that threat continues. But why do we get defensive? It's a common phrases might be, well, I didn't do anything wrong. You're just overreacting. I didn't mean it in that way. You should know that. That's exactly why I don't talk to you about these things. You're just being too sensitive. That's just how I am. You should know that by now. Fine. Whatever. Believe what you want. I'm done talking about this. Can you feel that defensive energy? Defensiveness is an experience, a feeling, not something necessarily that we can take a physically look at. So let's dive deeper into why. Why do we choose defensiveness over connection? To understand that, I want to give you an analogy of a castle. When we're being defensive, we're building our walls in between us and that perceived attack. We have that castle. The drawbridges are up. The bars are on the window. We've got the moat with the alligators should anyone try to attack us. We got the guards on the top of the castle marching back and forth with bow and arrow ready to fight at any moment. to protect ourselves. What are we protecting? It's our ego. What do you mean, Clay? I'm not egocentric. I'm not a narcissist. If you ever want to know what your ego is, take a look at what do you want other people to think of you as? What would you want your boss to think of you as? Do you want to put on your resume that you're a hard worker, you're punctual, you're reliable? How about your friends or family members? Do you want them to think of you as thoughtful, considerate, family-oriented, valued? How about your partner? Do you want them to think of you as considerate and loving and compassionate towards them? However you want people to think of you, think about it, a checklist. That's your ego, and that's what you're protecting. So when we get defensive, it's just because someone, perceived or real, is threatening one of these checkboxes. They make a passive-aggressive comment that you're lazy, and we get defensive. We say, I'm not lazy. Look at all the proof. I did all this work. I got the paperwork. Here it is. You're wrong. I'm not lazy.
Good.
When we feel threatened, that's when we hire that emotional defense attorney. Prove them wrong to make sure that they check our boxes. There are three kinds of business in the world. There's my business, your business, and God's business. And that's the God of your understanding. When we get defensive, it's important to realize that when we're in their business, making sure they check off our list so that we can be happy, we're in their business. So Sterling, if you're in Ed's business, who's in your business?
Right.
You. No, you're in his. Nobody's in your business. Right? So a light mental shift that helps with defensiveness is understanding when I'm in someone else's business, nobody's here. Lights are on, but nobody's home.
Good.
Right? Another mental shift is to stop seeking approval from others. Spare me from the validation, the approval seeking. When you have this checklist and you're handing it to someone and say, hi, please check all these boxes or we aren't going to have a good relationship. A lot of strain on the relationship. When we can understand our defensiveness and see it out in other people, understanding why do we choose defensiveness over connection? Because defensiveness and connection is a very dichotomous relationship. We can't have light and darkness coexist in the same room. So when we choose to be right, we choose to defend or protect, connection is lost. So understanding why, shifting our brain to think, do I want to be happy here or do I want to be right? That way, we can be more connected in our relationships. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Yeah. Good job, Quinn.